Hey, what's up, everybody? Scott Spreitzer and Indian Cowboy here. We are White Chocolate. Sweet 16 plus Major League Baseball also. Their official opening day coming up on Thursday, same day as the Sweet 16. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the show, but plenty of games to feature. We're going to kind of touch a little bit on every Sweet 16 game on Thursday and Friday, give a couple of thoughts on those games. And of course, as always, if you're not yet a member over at DocSports.com, all you got to do is click on that link below the video. Get yourself set up for the free $60 account. You can use those free $60 on any of our daily packages over at DocSports.com. Cool way to give Docs a trial run. I see, as you can see him right there, he's all ready to go, and we're going to start firing away here. Let's jump right into it. I see on Thursday's card, you got Arizona taking on Duke. Duke laying 9.5 for the most part. That total right around 153.5. I did look about an hour before we jumped on here, so let's say about 8 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday night, and saw that Duke has received about 55% of the tickets in most shops, about 60% of the money. So the Joes and the pros are kind of in agreement here on the Dukies. Sharp action was quick and was early this week with that Duke line open. Your thoughts on this game?
Well, I mean, Duke actually played them last year, earlier this year, I should say, and they beat them 69-55, and that game went way under 162. That's fascinating. That if you notice, I feel like what NIL has done now is there is no more Cinderellas, and there will never be any more Cinderellas. I mean, I don't think there is. It's the first time I think only 4 conferences are presented, right, out of the 16 teams that are left, and it used to be no less than 7 every year before this. So, you know, it's like, you know, you do well. I saw where the kid from Iona, right, lost to Connecticut the previous year. And now he got to play at Florida because he was their star player, right, one of their star players. Now he plays at Florida, and he beats Connecticut, you know, because and not only do your players get poached, but your coaches get poached. Yep. You know, you have Sean Miller, right? You know, they end up beating Texas. He's off to Texas. You have Will Wade. I mean, it's like the fascinating thing, Scott, is the Virginia coach. Remember UMBC?
Yes.
Remember they beat Virginia first round?
Oh, yeah.
And then he went off to another school, and now he's coaching Virginia.
It was that game, the 16 over the 1, that made me jump on Virginia the next year as a future. And I jumped on it like in October of the next year for the following March, and that's the year Virginia won it. But I still, to this day, I have to say thanks to UMBC. If it wasn't for them knocking out Virginia in round 1 that particular year, I wouldn't have won that ticket. I wouldn't have bet that Virginia future the following season.
Is your next line is, and that is why I'm living in this house? But no, it's so it's interesting that these two teams have played each other. So you have an Arizona team with revenge. That total was sitting at 162. This one comes in at 153, and the public's heavily on the over. So these two teams are familiar with each other. But, you know, Tommy Lloyd, this might not be as easy as Duke thinks it might be, right? Duke, you know, beat Baylor, which is good. They beat Mount St. Mary's, but this is an Arizona team that's going to be super hungry coming in. And I'm sure Arizona, it's not like Arizona is like, I mean, Duke is still a pretty young team at the end of the day. And Arizona has, you know, a couple of upperclassmen. They beat Oregon in a tight game. They beat Akron. They lost to Houston. But this is a team that's, you know, well-seasoned here. And again, they played Duke on November 22nd. That was their 4th game of the year. That was a game where Duke was up 34-27, right? They were only up by 7 going into the last 10 minutes, and then they pulled away. You know, it was a game where you know, Arizona shot 6 for 23 from three-point land. So what if they had 15 turnovers? I don't know, man. I think Arizona could give them some trouble here. Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge lean. I can't take an over because I want to take an over, but I can't take an over because 75% of the public's on them. But I can see Arizona hanging tough. You got a team with immediate revenge. They're not going to be shaken here. I mean, they're going to be hungry out. So, yeah, I like Arizona plus the 9.
That's the one thing about Arizona. I mean, they didn't get out of the gate real fast this year. Little sluggish, had some losses. They're better now, obviously, but Ken Palm kept him in his top 20 all season long, even when they were struggling, because this team, you know, they're talented, they're pretty deep. I took this one from Steve Mackinnon just to add a couple of notes and some flavor to this upcoming game. At Steve Mackinnon at VSiN, he pointed out that teams that win in the NC2A by scoring 88 or more have gone 57-10 straight up, 42-25 against the spread in the follow-up game since 2000, as long as they're favored by 6 or more. Now, Again, I'm not an angles guy. I know IC is not a big trend guy, but it's always fun to talk about. That in that case, it would point to Duke. But again, to me, angles should always be the icing on the cake. In other words, you've already decided on what game you're going to play or what team you're going to play, and that just makes you feel a little bit better when those angles are on your side as you go into that game. Alabama and BYU doing battle. This is an interesting game because right now, in fact, Alabama's a 5.5 point favorite. Bama getting about 55% of the tickets and the money. It's interesting that Nate Oates, I see, has covered just 30 of his last 72 when favored and had at least 4 days of rest. It's like maybe they're laying a little bit too much. You got to lay a premium with Bama in this spot. But these teams are similar. Bama plays at the quickest tempo in basketball. BYU won't slow things down most nights. Both love to shoot the three. But Bama's 22nd in the nation defending the three-pointer. BYU's 248th. And the Tide really do chase opposing players off that three-point line. I think that's going to be the difference here. I like Bama in this one, I see. What about you?
Well, I mean, what a total, huh? The total rolls in at 175 or 176, and that's kind of nice. I mean, compared to the other games, which are all in the mid-150s to be the highest, and of course the Arkansas-Texas Tech game is in the high 140s. Yeah, I mean, BYU played an SEC team early this year. They lost to Ole Miss in overtime. They lost to Texas Tech by 5. They beat Wisconsin in a thriller, right? And then they beat VCU. They lost to Houston by 20, and they lost to Houston twice. Ugly. I mean, that's not good. They lost to Houston by 31, and they lost to Houston again by 20 when they had revenge. That's not good. So, and then you look at Alabama, and I think Alabama has a little, hee-haw whip to them, if you will, because of what Auburn's doing.
Sure.
Alabama's clearly the younger brother now, and when it comes to basketball in the state. Not in football, but in basketball. So I think Nate Oates feels a little hurt because it wasn't long ago before this team was in the Final Four, right? It wasn't long ago when they were the darling, and now no one's really talking about them. And, Alabama, at the end of the day, they beat a good St. Mary's team. They beat Robert Morris. They got badly beat by Florida twice. But, I think I agree with you. I think that I like the fact that Alabama only scored 80 points in their last game. I think that's going to motivate them to put up a lot of points. St. Mary's they shot 3 for 14 from three-point land. Obviously, BYU is better than that, And so I like the over in this game. I think BYU will, of course, get up for the SEC as well. They're looking for relevance, too. And BYU put up 91 points on a top 30 defense in Wisconsin. And that's pretty darn good. Alabama is just as good. They're top 30 as well. But BYU put up a ton of points. And when you look at that game, it's not like BYU, take a look at that game. They shot 51% from three-point land and 46% from three-point land, and then 50% from two. Wisconsin shot 34% from three-point land, but they had 29 free throws. Yeah. So I think if Alabama can get to the line a little bit, they'll have some success. But that's where they're going to cover this game. It's on the line. But I like the over.
Next up, we got another Big Ten SEC clash, which is Maryland and Florida. This game will be played in San Francisco. This Florida line, interesting. It dropped from 7 to 6.5 late afternoon on Tuesday. But before that, some shops were reporting over 70% of both the tickets and the money on the Gators. Interesting tidbit floating around out there. Teams that won a tourney game on a buzzer beater, a la Maryland this past weekend, have only won 2 of their last 9 games. Kind of an interesting stat there. And one could say that both of these teams are fortunate to be here, considering both won in round 2 the way they did. Both teams could have lost. They both shoot the tray well. Both teams defend the three-point line quite well. Whichever team is able to adjust to a potential lack of open looks from the three-point line should cover this number because, again, they can both run you off the three with their defense. The Terps shoot fewer threes than Florida, so maybe they'll be more comfortable with not shooting as many threes as what Florida likes to do. Having said that, Florida is so darn strong on the glass. They value the rock. They don't turn it over. I'm going to side with Florida if that can drop down another half a point, maybe even now at 6.5. I was hoping it would come down. It did, I see. I like the Gators here in this one.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because I think Florida, with the whole Dan Hurley thing and the way he's like, they robbed you, they robbed us, I just think we want to shut them up. And I can't stand Hurley. I know he's back-to-back champs, and I'm really glad JJ Redick got the Laker job because I don't think, first of all, Hurley would have scaled in the NBA. They would have told him.
I don't think so. Yeah.
They would have told him to just F off.
Can you imagine them yelling at? Oh my gosh, wouldn't work.
JJ Redick's actually played pro basketball. Dan Hurley, I think, has seen a pro basketball, but I don't think he's ever played it. So whereas JJ's actually played the game and he was a journeyman, so he can relate to these guys a lot better than Dan Hurley can. Dan Hurley's going to try to Italian mafia these guys, the NBA players, and they'll be like, dude, go away. Like, no, stuff's not going to work on us. And so, there's just, I'm so glad Florida won. And that's just not me being an SEC homer too, but I just could not stand Connecticut keep winning, dude. I mean, Dan Hurley might beat the hell out of these guys next year. They're all going to have like welt marks. They might have to go check them for well visits or something because he might beat these guys next year. I feel bad for them. Did you see that crazy thing with that coach in New York pulled that girl's hair?
I did see that. Unbelievable. And I think he was retired at one point, came back to coach, and he brought with him his coaching style from 1970, apparently.
Jesus
I saw that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, Dan Hurley's going to be the next one.
I wouldn't be so. He spent last week, right? The week before the dance, he spends the freaking 48 hours before the dance talking about how much he hates nil, which is fine. But half my roster is looking to transfer. Okay, great. So is everybody else. Get with it. And also, besides that, maybe you ought to calm down a little bit, and maybe your half of your roster won't decide to look elsewhere potentially. I mean, there's nothing better to me. I mean, of course, if I'm on UConn, I don't like it, but there's nothing better to me I see when UConn's struggling and they get a couple of calls against him and the crowd starts chanting, Hurley's angry, and you can see it gets to him. It's getting to him when he's up there on the floor. He's trying his best to look like no biggie. He kind of smiles. It's digging into him big time, and I love it when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give him this because Arkansas has a $5 million budget because of the Tyson family, right? His buddy,
right?
Mr. Tyson. Yeah. And so he's got a $5 million budget. I don't know what Dan Hurley's no budget is, but obviously it's not that. And it's crazy that these teams are just professional teams. But in a way, it's good because these players should get paid. Yeah, I mean, they were working for
to some extent. Yeah.
Yeah, let them change their generation of their families, right?
The only thing I don't like about it, I see, and I agree with you, I've always thought players should be paid enough money to be able to get by at least. The only thing I didn't like is they called it NIL, which is name, image, likeness. So you can go out, you can sign a deal with a company, you can advertise their company, you can be their featured commercial actor and all that kind of stuff. You can be on video games. What it didn't say is that team with the deepest pockets gets to go out and recruit with those deepest pockets. And if they want to change that, that's fine. But it does create such a tough balance when it comes to mid-majors not being able to hang on to players, because if you have one good season as a mid-major player, I mean, good for you. I'm not against the players, but good for you that you're going to go on and move on to a major program for a lot more money. But again, they called it NIL, and that's not NIL. Reaching into your pocket as a school and saying, I'm going to give you $2 million, and Georgia Tech can only afford $1.5 million. That's what bothers me. But if they can figure out a way to limit it, I think is best. Got no problem with a player making $2 million a year. If that's what the market says he's worth, by all means,
what they're going to have to do eventually is tax these teams that go over a certain point.
Exactly.
And if you do that, then it's going to be like, all right, so are you a 1 million program? Are you a 2 million program?
Right.
A 3 million program? And then if they, you start having these bigger schools like Ohio State, like we're a 10 million program. Sure. Well, for every million you go up, you have to pay another 50% or something,
Right.
They could do that. But then again, what do you say about a school that has a rabid fan base that wants to give you money? Mm-hmm. I mean, right, this is America. And if they want to give you a lot of money for their program and you're able to raise it, and these guys are getting rich, and it can also work against you. Not all of those guys are going to hit. You're going to put a $2 million investment, then you're going to be dumb. And eventually the recession is going to happen. And then people are going to be like, why am I giving you $1 million for this kid to just sit around? So eventually the market is going to correct itself here. And people are going to be like, I don't know if I want to keep giving this much. What's the first thing you're going to cut back when the price of eggs goes up high?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm not. Why am I giving my school lots of money to pay these college?
Well, I do think a salary cap, and also I've got a big piece of advice both to the players, their families, and you know what? The universities who better be responsible for this. You better teach these kids about taxes, because if you're bringing a kid in and you're saying here's $2 million a year, and he doesn't know about IRS, and a lot of folks don't when they're 18 years old. I just feel a big, big heavy hit is coming down the road to some of these players. And I blame it on the universities if they don't start letting these kids, maybe they already do, but if they don't let these kids know what they got to pay towards the IRS, boy, it's on them as far as I'm concerned more than the kids.
Yeah, I actually think the school should take the IRS money out for them. And I
They
actually
should.
think
Yeah.
And I actually think that the guy should pay their tax accountants or whatnot, but they should pay them. And
Right.
they should learn about taxes right then and there. It's actually a good
Mhm.
thing. You learn them early. But as far as this game's concerned, I'm on Florida. Plus, I think Golden. Remember that series of reports that came out about him and
Yeah.
underage women and blah blah blah, and he got pissed off. That's the reason why they're here. If that report
Mhm.
never comes out, he's not mad at the world, and now he's pissed, and now he wants to destroy everybody. And so I think that'll motivate him. I think he's very silent on the Daniel Hurley thing, and I think that's going to
Yeah.
piss him off coming into this.
Oh, he's that kind of guy who's going to use it for motivation in the locker room and not talk about it publicly. That's what he feels like, no doubt about it, when it comes to something like what Hurley did the other day. Arkansas and Texas Tech doing battle. We keep looking. Well, now we're going to head to the Big 12 against the SEC, but this is the late game in San Francisco. Tech laying 5.5 as of Tuesday night. The total right around 148. Arkansas, I see, getting 65% of the tickets, but the line has remained the same in most shops, which means there's enough, I guess, wise money coming in on the other side to keep this where it is. For what it's worth, double-digit dogs in the Sweet 16 might not do well straight up, but they're on a 16-7-1 spread run. Obviously, that would fit these Arkansas Razorbacks. Again, double-digit by dog. I didn't mean double-digit as though they're getting 10 or more, but I should clear that up and say that teams that are double-digit seeds and are now Sweet 16 underdogs have done quite well.
I mean, what else would you put this line at, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I know everybody is jumping on Arkansas here. I've seen as much as 70% on Arkansas. But at the end of the day, you still have the number 9 team in the land. You got to respect them. You got to put them at least as a favorite of something. And plus, what seed are they? They're they're the 3 seed versus a 10 seed.
Right.
I mean, so you have to still make the line make sense, because odds makers at the end of the day they're pretty traditionalists, right? So they're gonna make these lines somewhat reasonable. And does Calipari look? Calipari had a huge edge, right? He played Kansas once.
Sure.
Art Kansas is the little brother of Kansas, so that motivated him. So they beat them. Then he played Calipari. He played Patino, who he knows really well from the UMass days. I mean, they go back way, 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 way back. So he knows exactly what system he runs. Plus, St. John's can't shoot, right?
Yep.
So he got an edge there. He doesn't get an edge with Texas Tech, okay? Texas Tech and, Arkansas is still a pretty young team at the end of the day. And Texas Tech is coached by Grant McCasland, right? He's in his second year. He came over from North Texas. This is a huge opportunity for him. If you remember, he lost in the first round to NC State last time around.
Sure.
But he's motivated. They beat Drake. They beat Wilmington. It's a team that also beat Kansas by 5 on the road, right? And they're a top 40 defense. I think they take care of them. I mean, if you're Arkansas, I don't think you get up for Texas Tech at all, like you do for Kansas and then Rick Pitino and St. John's. You know what I mean?
I would hope you into the dance with a chance to go to the Elite Eight is enough motivation, but I know what you're saying. Yeah, I had St. John's, as you know, at 40-1 to win the whole ball of wax, which I jumped on in early January. Didn't really think they were one of the top 4 teams at any time, but thought that was a good price. And it came all the way down to like 15 to 20-1. But I did have Arkansas in the clients that jumped on board this past week, and I did have Arkansas plus the points over St. John's. I thought 7.5 was too much in that game, but good for Calipari. He was able to beat Pitino, but you hit it on the head. Now he's got to go against a team that can handle the offense a little bit better than what St. John's did throughout the course of the season. Because if they had to rely on a deep perimeter shot, St. John's was done, and basically that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with Texas Tech just because I think Grant McCasland has a lot to prove here, and I think Calipari's proved what he needed to prove, right? Mm-hmm. But there is another subterfuge lining here, which is Kentucky's also in the dance,
sure,
right? And Calipari wants to outlast Kentucky,
yeah.
So he wants to. It's like, who's going to blink first? So I think remember Kentucky he was there a long time,
right?
There's a lot of pride there being sort of kicked out.
Yeah.
And I think he wants to prove a point here. So but I still go with Texas Tech.
I think he had one, if I remember right, one big dance win since 2019 at Kentucky. And so he had something to prove, no doubt about it. And he's partially there. He got a couple of wins in the dance, and now he's going to obviously attempt to get to the Elite Eight with his new program and kind of thumb his nose at Kentucky Wildcat fans who wanted him out after last March. Next up, we got Michigan and Auburn. We go back to an SEC Big Ten battle. This is the early game on Friday in Atlanta. Auburn laying 8.5 to Michigan in this one, total 154. The Wolverines have gotten about 60% of the tickets in the books that I checked with on Tuesday afternoon. This one's been bouncing around. I've seen as low as 7.5. I've seen as high as 9. Real quick note on this one also, Sweet 16 favorites of more than 4.5 have been a bankroll burner the last 7 tourneys.
Dude, I am so tired of Michigan. And this is coming from an Alabama fan. I'm so tired of Michigan. And I can tell you that's something that's going to unite Alabama fans. There's a lot of Alabama fans that are going to be rooting for Auburn, believe it or not, because they're just tired of Michigan, Sure. Like even your own enemy, you would like to choose your own enemy. Like, you know what I mean? That you have something on. Michigan just keeps trolling all things SEC consistently. And I think people in the South are a little tired of it. And they beat Texas A&M by 12 as well. So the pride of the SEC is on the line here. Remember, Alabama's lost to Michigan twice now, right? In football. And then Michigan, obviously, they beat Ohio State as well. But Michigan continues to do really well, just thumbing their nose at the SEC. And you give Dusty May a lot of credit. He's not with Florida Atlantic anymore. Right? He's got a team. He's got a budget. In his first year, he takes a team that was coached by Juwan Howard with 8 wins, okay? And then he rolls up here and just completely remakes the entire team. You know what I mean? Just brings a budget. It reminds me of the Mighty Ducks. It's like a completely revamped group of people. Like, who are you? It doesn't matter. We just want to win. But having said that, I think Auburn is going to be super motivated here. Everybody's rooting them on. But I don't know, man. Michigan just keeps covering.
Yeah.
And Michigan is just so well coached, And, it's hard to not back Michigan here because they did beat Purdue and Maryland and Wisconsin when it counted, And I feel like this team, Dusty May, this is his first time to go on a stretch run with these guys.
Sure.
These guys have not been eliminated in an elimination type game in the last 5 games. They have not. They've won 3 conference games. They've won 2 here. So they have that fight in them, and I feel bad for Auburn, and I'm rooting for Auburn hard, but I think Michigan's going to cover.
Lost you there for a second, man.
No, I said I feel bad for – I'm going to be rooting for Auburn, but I think Michigan's going to cover.
It's funny with this team. They played so many close games this year in Michigan, and they've won 13 games by 2 or fewer buckets. And I think it was Action Report that mentioned that this is the first time in 30 years – since like 85, that a college basketball team has won that many games by 4 points or fewer. But they've been getting it done. I think this is not a bad candidate for in-game betting because of Michigan's size and what they've got inside on defense. They don't need to double up Johni Broome. At least you would think they wouldn't have to, where other teams do. And so if they can defend Johni with one player, then that's going to be an advantage for Michigan. So I'm going to kind of watch that in the early going. I see and decide if I'm going to jump in game or not. I think that's a key to this. If I had to pull the trigger right now, I'd have to lay the points. But again, I want to see how it starts out, if Johni Broome can find his way around one individual defender, and if Michigan has to change up what they like to do and put 2 guys on him. I think that makes a big difference in that game. Also on Friday in Atlanta is Ole Miss and Michigan State. They're wrapping things up in Atlanta. Miss State laying 3.5 in this one, total 144. Tickets are split down the middle. Michigan State starting to get money on Tuesday afternoon. The line has been as high as 4.5, went down to 3, and then Tuesday afternoon, all the books started coming back up to 3.5. I look at this game, and I think that both coaches have been outstanding in the Big Dance over the years. Chris Beard, 8-1 against the spread in 9 Big Dance games. Izzo, of course, we know is magic. 44-9 straight up, 32-19-2 against the spread as Big Dance chalk. Number 1 and number 2 seeds, by the way, have taken care of business in this spot over the last few tourneys. I don't like the Rebels' work on the glass, and their 2-point defense has struggled, and I think it's tough to go against Sparty. Interested to see if you like Sparty here or if you're going to look to go the other way. I'm on Sparty here when I get involved in this game in all likelihood.
Well, I think Tom Izzo's time is limited, right? So I think he knows it's limited. He's a pretty reflective guy. And, this is a team that lost to North Carolina last year too, but I think he knows that his time is limited. They come off nice wins against New Mexico and Bryant. That New Mexico win was really impressive because Petito did have him coach so well. And that was a game where they were down 29-31, and then he coached them up and they came back. But they didn't shoot the ball well in that game. They shot 4 for 15 from three-point land. And I think I think the SEC can be surprising, right? And I think that North Carolina was a pretty good team. And I think that Ole Miss did quite well against them. Ole Miss knocked off Iowa State.
Yeah.
I mean,
Beat them badly.
yeah. I mean, and Iowa State, was coming in. They'd only lost to Auburn by 2 points. And, at Michigan State at the end of the day, I think this is a bad spot. I know Ole Miss's record doesn't speak for itself sometimes. I get that. But I think when it comes to this is just not – I think it's more impressive to beat North Carolina and Iowa State than what Michigan State did beating Bryant and New Mexico, right? And I think this is one of those things where what you do lately really matters because it's your ability to be sharp when it really matters, And so I'm going to take the points here. And plus, Ole Miss has Ole Miss's entire team is upperclassmen. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players, 7 of which are seniors. Michigan State has a motley crew of people. So I think these guys, remember, that's how Ole Miss got good. They bring the money and bring other players. So I'm going to go with Ole Miss.
Chris Beard is tough to go against. Both of these coaches, obviously, this time of year. I don't know, the folks that are watching, if they heard the story, I'm going to repeat it real quick. Several years ago, gosh, I don't even know what year it was at this point, maybe a decade ago, Chris Beard was hired at UNLV to be their basketball coach. We were all excited. His resume was incredible at that time. And we're all thinking Chris Beard is going to get us right back in the mix at UNLV. Of course, came out here as a teenager to go to UNLV, the whole thing. And a week later, he leaves the UNLV job for Texas Tech. And it was like, oh, man. So it was tough to root for Chris Beard unless he had money on his teams. Of course, he messed that Texas Tech job up. Now he's at Ole Miss. I'm kind of surprised he didn't maybe he did throw his name his hat in the ring when it came to the Indiana job. He was talking to some other coaches about that job a month ago. They ended up going elsewhere. But it's tough to go against Beard or Izzo, no doubt about it. The next game up, we will head to the battle between Kentucky and Tennessee, where the Vols are laying 4.5, total 144.5. This game in Indianapolis, and the Vols basically went from 4 to 4.5 on Tuesday afternoon, late afternoon. I was looking at the different books that I talked to, and for the most part, the Wildcats have more than 55% of the tickets, 60% of the money. Kentucky won both meetings this season, and a third meeting in the dance has not happened much over the last decade. One of the committee rules is you can't have two teams playing each other in the first 2 rounds. So that's why it hasn't happened a whole lot throughout the course of the big dance. So it takes late tourney matchups for that to happen. Not a lot of history as far as, what teams do well and stuff like that when there is a third meeting. It is worth noting that in these two teams, when they match up, the dog has not only covered the last 7, but they've won the last 7 outright. We know Tennessee was laying 10 at home and a 3.5-point favorite at Kentucky. Kentucky won both of those outright as a dog. Now getting 4.5 on a neutral court. Scared a little bit about Rick Barnes, I see, because he's got that horrible record, 6-18 now in big dance appearances. I'm trying to find reasons to jump on Kentucky because of what Barnes has done in his past and the fact that Kentucky was the better team both times they played this season.
Yeah, I mean, I want to back Tennessee. I want to back Tennessee because I feel like they're going to win when it matters. Sure. I don't know, man. I feel like the fact that Tennessee lost to Ole Miss on the road, when they lost to Florida, they lost to Kentucky twice, that can get inside your head a little bit there too. Now, Barnes can coach them up possibly too, but I think Kentucky's been through a lot of adversity. Kentucky is one of the few teams that beat Duke, right? Kentucky beat Gonzaga. Kentucky beat Louisville. Kentucky beat Florida at home by 6. And then, I think all of this, gives you a lot of confidence, and I think a lot of it matters. So this is a tough game. It really is. I think this will be a fascinating game. It's interesting, though, the last time these two teams met, the total is at 144.5. The last time this team two met, it was 75-64. So I think that, the only way that Tennessee wins this game is through the under. right? It's not going to be through an offensive juggernaut of performance. I mean, they held UCLA to 67-58. I think given the familiarity that Kentucky and Tennessee have, that's going to help towards the under as well. So I'm going to go with the under here.
Yeah, I like that too. I mean, it's like the more often you play, whether it be the NFL, college basketball, or whatever, the more the team knows what you're going to try to do, and it helps out on the defensive end of the field, or in this case, the court, more often than not. All right, let's wrap it up as far as the Sweet 16 is concerned. Then we'll talk real quick about some baseball. But Houston, an 8-point favorite over Purdue. The Cougars getting a little more than 57% of the tickets and the money as of late Tuesday afternoon. Purdue won just 3 of 9 before beating High Point and McNeese. I actually had them against High Point, which was a real nice way to start off Thursday's big dance action. So they won and they covered in those 2 games, but their depth isn't great this season, and they're 341st defending the 2-pointer, which means one of Houston's relative weaknesses is 2-point shooting. Might not be as big of a deal here. And I got to tell you, I see what I saw them do to Gonzaga for most of that game. And Gonzaga, people kind of forgot about them midseason. It's a legit top 10 power rated team. And they really played their game against Gonzaga for the entire game. And when things sped up a little bit, guys like Cryer and Uzan came through and were hitting their shots. So, Kelvin Sampson can beat you in a couple of different manners here. Boy, I kind of like him right now at -8. I haven't pulled the trigger, but I'm leaning that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Purdue is not going to sneak up on anybody anymore this year, right? They had that great run and they lost to Connecticut by 15, which we all knew they were going to lose. And now Matt Painter's team rolls in here. They beat McNeese, they beat High Point, and they didn't just beat McNeese, they throttled McNeese. And I think that's going to work against them here. The High Point game wasn't good. I mean, I felt like High Point played that game pretty well. I don't think Purdue played that well. I think McNeese was flat because, look, they have their manager who's the aura and he's signing deals. All that's cute, but I think they just got thrown off their game, right? And that was a game that was it was like 20-38 at the half. It was just not good. I think that kind of threw this team off. But Houston's a team on a mission, right? And I think that Gonzaga game is going to wake this team up a little bit because they didn't play well in the second half. Right. So I actually like, keep in mind that for as great as Kelvin Sampson has done, he's not, at the end of the day, he lost the last back-to-back years in the third round right here. And he hasn't won a title. So I think and Purdue's going to wake you up, and Purdue's going to wake any of these guys up. And, you get a chance to play another top 25 team. And I think Houston gets it done. I mean, I think Purdue's a good team. Don't get me wrong. They're outside the top 15 defense, though, and they didn't lose to Michigan by 20 points. That's not good. And that was a game in which they had revenge against Michigan, and this team lost to Indiana. That's not a bad look. Or that's not a good look, rather, either. So, and this team lost by 18 to Marquette. So there are some holes here on this Purdue team, which I think is going to come out. And there's not many holes on this Houston team. And they come off a tight game against Houston. They nearly lost. That's going to motivate them. And, I'm back in Houston. I think I lost you there. But, I'm back in Houston. Scott, you there?
Yeah, I lost you there at the very end and just came back. I missed about 2 seconds. So
you're good. No, I'm back in Houston. Yeah.
It's funny out here. Where I live in Vegas is one of the newer sections. And I've been told by my internet service that, it's just a weak signal out there. I live about 10 miles from the Strip. And every once in a while, this happens, as I see. So just apologizing to those who are watching right now. It goes down for about 2 seconds and pops back up. But heard the gist of what you're saying. Opening day, Major League Baseball, or at least opening day for all but 2 teams in Major League Baseball this Thursday. And I wanted to give out a play that kind of like for this Thursday. And I see if you have something, be sure to jump in here. But I was going to talk real quickly about the Tigers and the Dodgers. Now, I'm not trying to jump in front of freight trains here. So it's not going to be often when I look to go against the Dodgers. And in this particular game on Thursday, I'm not going full game against Los Angeles. But the first 5 innings, the Tigers are plus $115 against LA this week on Thursday. It's going to be Tarek Skubal for the Tigers, Blake Snell for the Dodgers. Snell didn't see much action at all this spring. And check out his March, April, May numbers since 2021. And one of those seasons, by the way, he didn't make his first starts till June. So you can look at June and July of that particular season, his first few starts. So 34 starts over that time span, the last 4 baseball seasons. Snell's 2-16. He averages less than 5 innings pitched per start. His ERA is 5.78. His WHIP is 1.58. There's always the chance the Dodger bats could go off against a southpaw. They got a lot of good hitters on that team that can hit southpaws as well as righties. But I like going against them here because I do like Skubal to have success for 5 innings and for Snell to do what he normally does, which is struggle early on. It did take the Dodgers in that opener in Tokyo 5 innings to get going against the Chicago Cubs, and then they finally did. Maybe that'll be the case here, but I do think that Detroit plus $1.15, first 5 innings only, isn't a bad way to go on opening day. I see. Thoughts on upcoming baseball season? I know you had a future you wanted to mention again.
Yeah, no, I still like the Milwaukee Brewers under. And I think you can find them around 82.5 or whatnot. And this is a team that had won 93 games last year, but everybody in the division has gotten better. And I don't think they have gotten as better. So, let it be the Cubs or the Cardinals, or any of those teams, rather. I just simply think that they've all gotten better. And I think this is going to be a situation where the Brewers will struggle this year a little bit too. Remember, the Pirates have also gotten a lot better too, and so have the Reds as well. And so, in fact, everybody has gotten better except them. So that's got to count for at least, remember, 10 wins is really 5 wins, right? Okay, instead of a +1, it's a -1. So, 5 games, considering 5 teams, you're not going to lose one more game to each team. Sure, you might lose 5 games more to one team if you look at it that way. So, yeah, I love the Brewers under. So,
and I think the Cubbies in that division is going to be a good team this year. They might not win 95 games, but they're going to be good. I think the total was 85.5. They're 0-2. I don't panic when I see that they started 0-2 because, and everybody's talking about their middle relief doesn't look good. They just played the Dodgers. They just played the freak, Shohei and right down the line, even though Freddie Freeman missed it and Mookie Betts missed it because he was back in the States dealing with the flu bug. But that lineup is so loaded. I don't have fear about the Cubs middle relief yet. Now, if they start doing that against, Milwaukee and the Cardinals, then we got another thing coming down the road. But anyway, I like your play there on Milwaukee. Again, folks, don't forget, if you have not yet become a member over at DocSports.com, you can jump on board, get a $60 free account by clicking on that link below the video, and then you can get any of our plays by using that $60 free account, any of our daily packages over at DocSports.com. I see me, anybody else on the side. It is as simple as that. All right, man, White Chocolate done for another week. He's Indian Cowboy. I'm Scott Spreitzer. You can find us exclusively and check out our videos every day over at DocSports.com. Let's put them in the win column, everybody.